Welcome to June 2012's edition of My Life on the Hill. All sorts of interesting stuff going on this month. First off, we'll get up into the vegetable patch. We'll harvest the very first broad beans of the year. And I want to show you some really interesting invert activity that's going on in the veggie patch. And after that, we're going to come down here, come down to the field and check out this year's lambs. Let's go. Well, viewer, I thought as a treat for all concerned, we'd have a little guest in this month's show, or at least to start this month's show. This is Lilly. This is my little travelling companion, and Lilly has spent an astonishing amount of time on my back over the last few months, and she seems to quite like it, which is handy. So we've had all sorts of adventures together, haven't we, babe? These broad beans will have changed dramatically since you saw them last. It's wonderful. In fact, I've been away for a few days this week, working away. I've come back and they've changed enormously since I was away, and I was slightly concerned that because of the lack of pollinators that we would have fewer beans, but in actual fact these plants are inundated with beans. And I tried, as you know, a few different varieties this year. These are a heritage variety. We were hoping to do some filming a few weeks ago, in which case you would have seen these beautiful crimson red flowers, all of which have gone over now, and all have been replaced by little miniature beans. Some of these beans will be very small because it's still arguably a little too early to pick them, but we love them when they're tiny because they're juicy. And the reality is, while some people are quite happy with the skin and left on their broad beans, even big broad beans, I'm not overly keen on it, and if they do get big, you always have to peel them. So it makes a lot more sense, cut down on your workload, grow a few more broad beans, subject to space, and eat them when they're young and tasty. The other thing I have here is a situation where I've got mice moving in at any time, and if I don't catch the mice before they start munching on my beans, or pick the beans before the mice move in, I'm going to lose loads. So there's another reason why I try to harvest them early. We can have a quick look at these now in the basket before I take them down to the house and see what they look like. Oh, it's exciting. Look at those little beauties. Absolutely gorgeous. And we can try one of these. Oh, just lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. See if Lilly wants to try it. Do you want to try a bean, babe? Got it? Little bean. What do you think of that? I'm not sure she's going to be particularly impressed with she does like peas though. She loves peas, but they're quite, perhaps a little bit sweeter than these chaps. Do you want to try one, John? See what you think. What's the verdict? Yeah, good for me. Very nice, aren't they? Yeah. Look at that. Look at those beautiful little jewels in that lovely little furry purse. Fantastic. Of course, the other thing I had to do with the broads, because we've had such shocking weather, the wind cuts across, and you remember way back when I planted these, I planted some slightly deeper in the soil to see whether or not they would hold in the ground firm, and it does seem to have helped. Although having said that, I still had to rope them off. I still had to put this mesh around them to stop them sort of blowing over a little bit, but they are standing up quite well now. But the wind does seem to cut across the top here. But they're doing well. They're doing extraordinarily well, actually. I'm really pleased with them. I'm going to pick a few more of these beauties and we'll take them down to the house. I wanted to show you something that I didn't really want to disturb. In fact, I plant my sweet corn in a fairly random pattern around this strip of black polythene. I'll show you what we're the reason for my leaving it here is absolutely fascinating. Look at that. Look at those beauties. Isn't that amazing? Wonderful. They're so warm as well. These are yellow meadow ants. They're very common here. It always astounds me the size of the eggs compared to the little ants themselves. But you see how wonderful this fine, they've tilthed this soil These are the guys that are responsible for those big mounds sometimes that you see in fields that haven't been ploughed for many years. They live under the soil and they're constantly sort of mounding up the soil to create these wonderful, well, they appear to be molehills with grass on top of them. And in fact, the other thing we have under this polythene sheet are lots of little pill bugs. The Latin name for these is Armadillidium vulgar, vulgar being common of course, but the Armadillidium, you know, they are if I take them off and let them sort of curl up in my hand, you have the invertebrate version of an armadillo, really. Wonderful little chaps. I've just spotted something. It's so wet, it's so difficult for bees. And there's a wonderful little Red Tailed Bumblebee, a little worker bee, and it's just relaxing on this tomato plant leaf. You'll remember some time ago we made this fantastic homemade compost with the leaf litter from the wood floors and all that wonderful wormy compost, and it, you know, the vigorous growth that you'll see in these tomato plants really kind of illustrates the integrity of that compost. It's wonderful stuff. But this poor little bee is grounded because it is really quite cold. In actual fact, we've had to light the fire in the house today just to knock the coolness out of the air. When bumblebees are amongst the few animals that can generate their own body heat, of course, so in actual fact, or few insects that can generate their own body heat. So in actual fact, they probably fared better than a lot of honeybees and solitary bees. And here's a real treat. Now, not many people have seen these, and the reason I recognise them is because obviously at night time I've shone the torch on them on many occasions just to see what they look like. And I see these guys crawling around all the time in the broad daylight, you know, kind of trying to move from one space to the next. And it is, in fact, a little glowworm. And we haven't really seen many glowworms light up this year, and I think it's because it's been so wet. They don't like the wet weather, and the males don't tend to fly that frequently when it's really wet at night. So we haven't seen very many of those little beady lights ensconced in the banks, but I've seen several of these chaps crawling around, so I know they're doing well. And these are fabulous little natural pest control themselves, because you know, if you look at the front of the animal there, it's got a pair of quite menacing jaws, and it will come ambling up to a snail or a slug. It's not exactly fast moving itself, but fast enough to catch up with a mollusk, and it will embed its jaws into that snail and sup its juices. In fact, I put a few little snails in the bait box with it just to see if it needed food. It would have plenty of sustenance to go through the day while we were waiting to do this filming. What a lovely, beautiful little creature. This is one of the little chaps, the little lambs that we've had this year. One of the youngest actually, a little male ram. See his little testicles there. I'm going to castrate this little chap. Unfortunately, he's got a problem with his eye. Sometimes they have inturned eyelids. So what I'm going to do is I've got some ointment to put in his eye. See if that will help. And then I'm going to band his testicles and band his little tail. The reason we band their tails really is just to make the ends drop off. It's so they have a cleaner derriere, so they're less likely to get flies and things laying eggs in their backsides. Keeps them cleaner. And I just kind of like to put the bands really just where that bit of skin kind of ends on the tail. And it's a relatively sort of simple process. The animal doesn't feel anything either. So I'm sort of making a bit of a meal of this, but there we go, shake that in there like that. Let's go see where we are. There we go, that's on there nicely. And then the other thing we have to do is put a band on these little testicles. Now unfortunately, I think what I might do is wait a little while, because there's a danger that you put the band on the testicles and you might leave one testicle up in the body of the sheep or something. But the reason that we do this really is, you know, when they get sort of 4 or 5 months old, they try to mate with their mothers and things, which is, you know, never a good thing. So we're going to, I think I might leave this one just for a few more days before I put the band on his testicles anyway. But I'm going to treat his little eye nonetheless while I'm here. This is Mum. Unfortunately, it seems that some ewes are particularly prone to giving birth to lambs that have an inturned eyelid, and unfortunately it just kind of rubs against the pupil all the time. It really irritates them, and they have this kind of sort of whitey sort of film over the eye. And that lamb is doing okay because one eye is absolutely fine, but the other eye is obviously giving it some real irritation. So I've just given it some ointment anyway, which will hope up. It's a sort of antibacterial ointment, so hopefully it'll clear up any infection. And I just have to keep coming out fairly regularly and trying to flip the eyelid back out again. Unfortunately, what tends to happen is the eye tends to creep back into the animal's head or up into its head a little bit more because it's trying to escape from the irritation. So just keep an eye on it. But as you can see, he's happy, he's feeding, you know, he's growing. Well, that's pretty much it for this episode of My Life on the Hill. Here I am hiding behind this wall, trying to get away from this blistering June weather that we're having. Hopefully next month will be a different month altogether and we'll actually be able to film some sunshine on the hill. See you next time.